And good morning, everybody. It's time now for Putnam County Today here on 94.3 WREB. With us this morning is from Putnam County's EMA, the department that kind of handles all the emergency response stuff as far as weather and just all kinds of natural emergency. Chris Edwards is with us. And Chris, I tell you what, we've had a really unusual winter this winter. And a lot of people, a lot of the weathermen that I've talked to have said that we can expect some strong storms this spring because of it, right?
Yes.
And you guys are getting ready to have another class for your weather spotters, and it's a great opportunity for people. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what the class is and how people can get involved?
Well, it's next Wednesday, March the 12th at 7 p.m. at the Emergency Operations Center. It's out there next door to the County Highway Department.
Mm-hmm.
It's free and open to the public. It's the one time out of the year we have the National Weather Service personnel actually come out from Indianapolis to present up-to-date information, what they've learned over the past year, and integrate that into their presentation show that they give out. They tell you about what they've recently discovered about radars and so forth, what new developments are in the process of coming into current warning systems from the Weather Service. They teach you visual aids to tell you what the storms are actually doing.
Okay.
They discern between shelf clouds, wall clouds, the wall clouds being tornadic potential, and the shelf clouds are just that cool outflow that every storm has. Teaches you how to discern between those two, which is very important. And safety with floods, lightning, straight line winds, which is more oftentimes, what happens with a severe thunderstorm.
Right.
Also some hail, warning criterias, differences between weather watches and warnings, and where you can get more information for the severe weather information off the internet.
All right. And the nice thing is it's not a class to scare people. It's kind of more to get them trained what to see, and actually in some instances how they can help report information to the Weather Service, right?
Yes, they have, it's on the amateur radio side, it's called Skywarn. It's initiated back in the 70s, I believe, for amateur radio operators, but these days you can use Twitter, Facebook, and of course the old telephone,
right.
To the National Weather Service office, and you can actually talk to them. They give you numbers you can call. This class helps you tell them what they need to know and kind of weed out the information that's not important for a warning to be issued and so forth. Because the radars out there in Indianapolis scan roughly 2,500 to 3,000 feet off the ground by the time it reaches Putnam County, because the Earth curves up and away and the radar just stays in a straight beam. So their radars cannot discern what's going on at the surface. Maybe in the storm, low, mid-level reaches of the storm, but not at the low levels. And it does a scan every 5 minutes, and some tornadoes, especially the weak ones, can develop and actually live out their life cycle within that 5 minutes.
That's true.
So the radar will never pick it up. But that's the role that spotters play, and the Weather Service has relied heavily on them through the decades.
And the nice thing is this not only helps the National Weather Service, it also helps here in Putnam County, if we need to get people out of the way of a storm type of situation as well, right? I guess talk to us a little bit about how the emergency management handles, like severe weather when it comes through Putnam County.
Well, it starts out, I normally pick up on chances of substantial weather outbreaks like last November 17th.
Mm-hmm.
We normally get word or indications about 5 or 6 days ahead of time for those big events. And it's pretty much a day by day as the event closes in. The day of the event, we normally will go to certain levels of activation at the EOC, bring on certain personnel as the conditions warrant to the county. And if the Weather Service or a trained spotter or a member of emergency management or a sheriff's office personnel picks up a tornado, sirens can be activated accordingly to what part of the county it is in.
Okay.
In the past, we've had tornado warnings in Clay County, and it automatically sounded the sirens here in Putnam County.
Right.
And the storm moved southeast and didn't even enter the county. So we need to eliminate those false warnings.
And, I think a lot of people back in the day, they'd hear the sirens go off and it's just like, oh, it just become mundane. They just kind of ignored them after a while. Technology has really helped us as far as getting people out of the way of severe weather and, of course, warning us ahead of time that these things are happening. I think this is a great opportunity, even if you don't want to become a weather spotter, just to learn the basic lingo. And maybe you would like to take us through, the difference between watches and warnings, too.
Okay. A watch, of course, is conditions are favorable for certain kinds of severe weather, tornado, or severe thunderstorms. Of course, one doesn't preclude the other, of course, because you can always get a quick spin up unexpectedly from any severe thunderstorm. Sometimes even without a severe thunderstorm, they just spontaneously spin up with boundaries that are intersecting with the storm.
Right.
And I've seen several of those over the years. Pretty much, it's a good educational tool, even if you just have an interest in severe weather, and gives you an opportunity to meet the people behind the warning scrolls that you see on your television set. And a lot of the TV meteorologists get some of their information from the Weather Service. They're good at repeating what the Weather Service says. Sometimes they throw in their own ideas.
Exactly.
Sometimes good prevails, sometimes not so well. Forecasting weather is virtually impossible.
Right.
They're all educated guests, and we're just out there trying to figure out, the best way to safeguard lives and property. But of course, no matter how much technology you have out there, it's up to the individual to do the right thing. And a lot of times, I've done it for 27, almost 28 years now, and it seems like the opposite occurs. You get a tornado warning, everyone's on the front porch looking for it.
Exactly.
So,
and I'm not sure that the internet, YouTube, and that type of stuff has helped in that situation.
No, there's been a lot of neat videos show up over the years, but it also shows what can happen if you do the wrong thing.
Exactly.
You see the tornado, it's rain wrapped, you don't see it till the last second, until the house next to you disintegrates or the roof tears away. You want to take 2 or 3 steps and you hear the windows break out behind the cameraman.
Right.
And of course, it seldom is the actual tornado that kills, it's the debris that it's picked up and thrown. Because pieces of broken windows and so forth doing 100 miles an hour can really do some serious damage to a person.
Right.
And we just want to get people to recognize the threat. A lot of times nothing's going to happen, and 70% of tornado warnings are false alarms.
Right.
Because there's not any ice underneath that particular storm, but it's radar indicated.
Right.
The mid-level of the storm might be rotating, but it doesn't indicate that there's a tornado on the ground. A lot of storms rotate, but we don't know exactly what causes the tornado to actually spin up and develop. We don't know if they're going to be strong. Majority of them are real weak.
Right.
But you never know. Indiana hasn't had an EF5, thankfully, since the 70s.
Right.
But we've had several EF4s.
We just celebrated, I guess not celebrated, but had the 2nd anniversary of the Henryville incident in southern Indiana. And, a lot of lives were saved there because the EMA, as well as the media and everything, was able to warn people ahead of time.
Yeah, and that was a day that was very similar to last November 17th.
Right.
The situation was very identical, except it was a little bit further north. Last time it was southern Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. This time it was northern, central Illinois, Indiana, and so forth. But high-risk days are extremely rare. They occur in the country on average every 2 years.
Really?
So they are reserved for the real extreme events. Deratios, as they're called, which is pretty much, I relate to an inland hurricane.
Right.
There's just a real broad, damaging straight-line wind event. It covers hundreds of miles, and they streak for sometimes as much as 1,000 miles.
Wow.
They'll form in Iowa, and they'll move off the North Carolina coast 12, 14 hours later. But, they produce winds anywhere from 80 to 130 miles an hour.
That's true.
So we gotta be, and of course major tornado outbreaks, and they're reserved for those two events.
Right.
Because it's almost a certainty, at least 40–50% chance that tornadoes, normally violent tornadoes, EF4s and 5s will occur, which of course occurred in Washington, Illinois.
Right.
And that was a high risk day, that was EF4, almost a 5. But Indiana had, I think in the state we had, I'm trying to remember exactly, but I think we had about 28 tornadoes, which was the third highest in state history of any month. But of course, we actually have 2 tornado peaks in the year. Of course, the spring
Right.
is our primary, but we also have a secondary smaller peak in October and November. And we actually had an EF3 tornado touchdown within 2 miles of the station in November 22nd, 1992.
Right.
And it went due north all the way to 36 before it dissipated. So it just shows you, no matter what time of the year it is, you know, if the ingredients come together on any given day, especially winter, which you don't associate severe weather, back on February 20th, we had 2 tornadoes.
That's true.
One was up in Crawfordsville. The weak ones, but anytime you can get, you know, a surge of 50–60 degree air in, you know, if it's a real strong storm system, it can produce severe weather, despite what time of the year it is.
All right. Well, Chris, want to again remind folks when the class is, and of course it's open to the public, right?
Yes, it's free, open to the public. Anyone can show up as long as they have an interest. It takes roughly 2 hours. You can ask your own questions to the Weather Service and all this. Again, it's March 12th at 7 p.m. at the EOC,
Okay.
which is, I can't remember the road exactly, but it's the road that goes over the tracks by the Alex
Yep.
bowling lane.
Right next to the highway department.
Right next to the
and,
highway
and a
department.
bunch of big towers down
Yeah,
there.
you'll see
Can't
some
miss
towers.
it.
You can't miss it.
Well, Chris, we do appreciate you coming in. We're hopefully have a very gentle and nice spring into summer. And then, of course, always glad you guys are around to kind of help us out if we do ever need you. And, of course, we want to have Chris back here in a couple months, and we'll be talking about different types of weather and different types of stuff EMA's got going on. So we appreciate you coming in, Chris.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Don't forget, if you have a nonprofit group or community organization and you'd like some free airtime here on WREB, you too can be a part of Putnam County Today. Just give us a call at 653-9717.